Hello. We are Mad About Growth, which is an invite-only digital community for sales, marketing, and strategy professionals, which helps anyone who are looking to pursue their careers or hone their skills in sales, marketing, and strategy. Skills are fostered through different learning methods in theory and practice. As a part theory, we have Growth Engine Handbook written by Moses Sam Paul, which elaborates on topics of lean, canvas, personas, buyer's journeys, content strategy, curation, distribution, engagement, and analytics. Also, as a part of industry learning, we have the podcast series where we invite professionals to share their experience and insights. We have weekly themes for the podcast series. In the first week, we had Mr. Chaitanya, who is the head of growth at Knox, who spoke regarding moment marketing. We had Mr. Ravi Kikan last week, who is the head of growth at and author of Bounce Back, who spoke about sales. The theme for this week is about strategies to survive and thrive in this current situation where a lot of businesses are struggling to stay afloat. So, we have Mr. Srinivas from Minton Consulting, who has taken time off from his schedule to be a part of this podcast. He holds an MBA in Operations Strategy from XLRI Jamshedpur. He has worked at Mercedes-Benz R&D, General Motors, and TCS before moving into strategy management. He held senior strategy management position in infrastructure, Takshashila Consulting, and Reliance Jio, driving continuous improvement with multiple high-performance teams. He started his own venture, Minton Consulting, which helps clients implement projects to improve productivity, sales, and to reduce operational costs. His expertise lies in growth strategy, market development, process improvement, cost reduction, product or service pricing, service management, ability to design end-to-end go-to-marketing strategies, and plan supply chain for products and services, and made the same at the grassroots level. To summarize, he's a management consultant with 12 plus years of experience working in the textile, telecom, manufacturing, infrastructure, automotive, healthcare, oil, and gas industry. Welcome to the podcast, Mr. Srinivas.
Hey, hi. Thank you for inviting me. And then great to know about Mad About Growth and then the great work you're doing. And then it's quite inspirational. I've seen your previous podcasts and then they are very informative. Keep up
Oh,
the good work.
lovely. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Srinivas. Okay, so let's try to understand. Being an Indian, it's kind of implied that you become an engineer and then you join TCS, right? Which is kind of the path that it took, and then getting into XLRI. And can you talk us about that? Like why XLRI, and specifically, though XLRI is more focused on HR related things, why did you get into process and strategy over there?
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest misconception. Maybe XLRI has actually started as a HR college,
Oh,
but then now it's a normal MBA course. Like HR is also a specialization, which it is very well known for. But then they also have a business management and the general management program, which is
right.
about a normal MBA, right?
Mm.
So that said, yes, you're right. XLR is one of the top places for hiring the HR talent across the country. Great. So now, like coming to strategy and business, like I always had this interest about business, and then way back in 2002, 2003, I was like reading every Business Today magazine that was there, right from when it was 8 rupees per magazine, and then now it's more than 150 rupees per magazine. So from then, I have been a voracious reader of Business Today. Like I used to love how companies make their strategies, have faced some difficult times, and then have come out of it. A few great leaders who have helped all these organizations come out of it. So that has actually given me some kind of a greater picture, and then like I wanted to become someone who could see the broader picture and then be able to help organizations at a level uh, much beyond transactional level.
Right. Okay.
That is where the roots of process improvement, productivity, uh, organizational strategy, and then growth strategy, all of this has come into picture.
Right.
So that kind of became a stepping stone for me to do an MBA, then join management consulting, and then things happened one after the other.
Lovely. So let's talk about after XLR,
Mhm.
especially the consulting stints that you had, right?
Mhm.
Takshashila. Can you talk a little bit about that and how it eventually ended in starting your own thing and why the name Minton?
Fine, that's actually funny. I'll come to it sometime later. So, like, yes, Takshashila Consulting has been actually played a great part in my career, actually helping me become more of a consultant, nurturing me to become a consultant. And then Mr. Manish Agrawal, who has coached me for a long time throughout my tenure in Takshila Consulting, he helped me behave like consultant, act like consultant, think like consultant, talk to the CEOs, understand their requirements, how to present something in a structured way so that everyone understands it very easily. Right?
Right.
These
Right.
are all the basics of consulting that you need to practice, and again practice so that you kind of fine tune the art of management consulting. And
Right.
then at the end of the day, every management consulting job has a problem to solve, and then how do you solve it?
Correct. Yeah.
Right? So the
Uh,
problem might be something related to HR, something related to manufacturing, something related to sales. So
mhm.
basically, you have to understand the crux in
Right.
terms of like what is the actual pain point of your senior management, right?
Right. Mm.
Only then you will be able to help them at that level, right? So experience in Geo is like one of a kind. Like not every day a new company uh, comes up in any country, and then being able to work with the very top management in Reliance Jio, and then being able to implement many things at the ground level, right?
Mm. Mm.
So that has been a great learning for me. And then definitely like management consulting bug has been there for quite some time, and then my very good friend Ashish, who also happens to be my classmate from XLRI,
Okay.
he started something, and then he wanted to establish a management consulting firm. So both the ideas gelled, and then we took it off from there.
Oh,
So coming to Minton and the name, so Ashish is a very good badminton player.
okay.
So he moved the bad from Minton and then badminton and then
Okay. So it became a good Minton. Good
yeah,
Minton.
yeah.
All right, very nice. But still, planning into something on your own, especially in a consulting space, when you have almost every big, you have BCGs, McKinsey's of the world
Mhm.
operating in India, and you also have your, the ENYs, Deloitte's of the world, right?
Mhm.
Then you have your Takshashila and Headstrong kind of
Mhm.
consulting
Mhm.
companies as well. Now, where do you see there is a space for you? Of course, like you have been growing as well.
Mhm.
So, but like when you're taking that plunge, you would have obviously thought about these things, right? So, what made you say that okay, it's okay, these guys are still there, but I think I can make a difference. So, what was that moment when you decided, okay, I'm gonna go with my friend and start this?
See, frankly, if you see any product or service, like
Hmm. Hmm.
at every price point, there are takers for a service.
Okay, so
Right?
price.
Yeah. So, for example, you have Mercedes-Benz car selling, you have Maruti Altos selling, and
Hmm.
you have Duster selling. And then each
Right.
comes in at a different point, and then caters to a different customer's need,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So that is where we felt like all these top companies, BCG, McKinsey, their fees is like more or less equivalent to the turnover of many of the small and medium companies, right?
Right.
So there is no point that these people are going to afford KPMGs, BCGs, McKinseys, forget about McKinseys and BCGs. So they
Correct.
can't even afford KPMG, PwC, wise and all.
Right.
That is where we come into picture. And then one of the focus for us has been implementation consulting, right? So
Hmm.
that is one piece which even McKinsey has started recently. McKinsey also has an implementation wing.
Hmm.
So gone are those days where you just give some uh, project,
PowerPoint presentation and
say, was this is what you have to do. You do this, and then you will fly out with flying colors.
hmm.
Gone are those days. So now. The trust on management consultants, it's not just up to giving a project report or recommendation
Hmm.
saying to do this, but then so there are two things. Like one, if you're actually serving an MNC, right? So what they actually need is a third person's view in trying to understand like where the faults lie, and then how do you correct it, and then they have their internal team to help rectify those things and then go forward, right? But then coming to the clients that we serve, basically small and medium company, always crunched for resources, and then having the management bandwidth and then bandwidth at the top management level,
Right.
right? So that is very scarce in these kind of companies, and then they are not able to implement or visualize what recommendation has been given and then a way forward in terms of implementation, right?
Right. Mm.
If you see any management consulting project taken by BCG, McKinsey, they are mostly for like 6 weeks, 8 weeks, max 12 weeks, right?
Mm.
But
Mm.
then our projects are generally about 9 to 12 months, right? So
Oh.
the first phase of what McKinsey does and we do is kind of similar in terms of problem identification phase, the solutioning phase, the recommendation phase, which we
Mm.
complete generally in about 2 months to 3 months.
Okay.
And there comes the real value that we add in terms of helping the organization implement these recommendations, right?
Okay.
So
Okay.
we have a very well set process in terms of how we conduct our projects, and then all our employees are trained on it to
Right.
ensure that we give minimum 5x to 10x result to a organization in terms of whatever metric that they want to improve.
Okay. Mm.
That is
Okay.
where we differentiate ourselves as compared to the other
So
management.
one is pricing point. The second thing is focus more on implementation, not
Yes,
just okay, great.
right.
Now, so now the immediate next step is, so you started this. Now, how did you go about getting the first client? Or you already had a client and then you started this?
See, frankly speaking, there is no marketing that can be done for a management consulting service. You cannot boost ads on Google or Facebook and say, "Boss, this is a service I provide. Please come and take my service." Like people don't even care about all of these
What
things.
searches for it? No one is gonna
So
search for
this
I
is
need a management consultant. Yeah.
this kind of a service. It's a very involved process, and then basically you take suggestions from your friends, relatives, someone you know, right?
Okay.
The only kind of marketing that you can get is a word of mouth marketing, right?
Mm.
So
Mm.
what we went about doing, me and my friend, like we spread the word to all the people whom we knew in terms of this is what we intend to do, this is the kind of projects that we handled in the past, and this is the kind of change that we can bring about for your organization.
Ah, ah,
And then like word passed one person to other person,
right.
so we're able to get this word to a person who was there in CII.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Ah,
so he knew some other person in one of the CII firms. One person came up to him and told, "Boss, I have this great productivity problem in my textile mill. So can you please solve? Can you tell me what is my way out?" And then he pitched Minton to them, and then he called, and then things went well, and then he awarded the project.
okay, lovely. So my next question was about that only. So, so when someone comes and says that they have a productivity problem, that's
Mhm.
typically, I would say, a better place to be in terms of going and consulting, because the client already knows that they have a problem, right?
Mhm.
Uh, so did they have metrics to show that productivity is dropping over a period of time?
Uh, no, I think that is a long shot. Like only very few people would know that.
Right.
So that is the root cause, right? Productivity is the root cause. The
Correct.
only problem that most of the owners might know is they are feeling pressure for the cash. Their cash is not rotating so much, and then they
Correct.
don't have that surplus cash. They
Mm.
are not able to spend. They are not able to pay their vendors on time. So
Okay.
this is when they understand that the financial situation of the company is not very healthy.
Okay. Mm.
So some people are smart enough to understand where there is a problem, and then they might look for a solution in a specific place. But then generally it is up to us to understand like where in the organization there is a problem.
Okay.
Sometimes it so happens that the client comes up saying that my production is a problem. Then we understand that production is actually not a problem, but there isn't enough sales,
Mm.
because of which there is no pressure on manufacturing to improve their operations.
Okay. Got it. Mm. So the baseline, you essentially take what, 2 to 3 weeks to establish the problem statement and set a baseline.
So generally, it doesn't start off directly as a project. So
Mm.
there is a small phase called due diligence that we do for organizations,
Okay.
and then in the due diligence phase, we just try to study the organization in terms of like what are the systems, what are the processes, how well trained are the employees, what kind of communication or information do they have in terms of the company's whole
Mm.
targets, goals, and all of these things. So
Right.
when there is disconnect at every level, So
Okay.
that is something that opens our eyes in terms of how organization, like where the gap is, right? So balanced scorecard is a very good framework, which
Right.
we can discuss later,
Uh,
which also helps us analyze like where there is a problem, and then which is also a tool to help us fix these problems,
okay.
right?
Great.
So we do a small due diligence for a week or so,
Mm.
and then we try to say, boss, this is the study that we have done. So these are the gaps that we have identified, and then these gaps, when filled, ideally would give you a improvement in terms of so many numbers, right?
Mm.
So we try to quantify it and show so that they get a clear picture in terms of like what is the scope for improvement, right? The metrics can be in terms of revenue or in terms of improvement in productivity or in cost reduction in manpower, resources, utilities, all of these things,
Mm, mm,
right?
mm,
So
mm.
as far as possible, we try to show them in numbers so that the management is convinced in terms of what is the scope for improvement.
Right.
So that actually lays your foundation stone for actually getting into a project.
Cool. Huh. So, but now since you're also doing implementation,
Mhm.
as clients asked you or come back to you saying, "Hey, after you implement and
Mhm.
show success, I'll pay
Mhm.
a percentage of the fee." So basically, retainer plus success fee. Is that how it works, or it's purely retainer?
No, there is a significant retainer amount also because irrespective of the results, we definitely spend time, and then showing improvement is not such of a big deal. So
Mm.
people can see the improvement, and then in many cases, people have come back to us and said, "Boss, my general manager never used to care about productivity, but
Mm.
after you have come, so he's calling vendors and saying, boss, my utility cost is high. Can you do something to reduce my cost?" This
Mm.
is a welcome change that the management wants.
Correct. Mm.
If they see their people changing in their mindset, that is a good enough result for the management. But
Right.
yes, there are many projects where we have taken a success fee also.
Just success fee.
No, not just
Oh,
success fee.
retainer plus
Retainer
success.
plus success.
Okay, so I'm gonna let Giridhar and Ajay take over from now on, and I'm gonna turn my cam off.
Hi Giridhar, hi Ajay.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
So,
Hi, Srinivas.
guys, yeah.
Okay. So, Srinivas, we have been talking. So, this week's theme is about surviving and thriving during the challenging times,
Yeah.
right? So, since we are going around that, can you just tell us how your clients are facing this kind of a situation? What is the advice that you are giving them?
So, like any change comes with both goods and bads. So, similarly, even this Corona thing, the COVID pandemic has actually been uh, in a sense positive news for some people and then negative news for most of the people, but then different clients have actually coped up with it in multiple ways. So first thing I'll say you in terms of like where things have benefited, for example, there is a manufacturing unit, and then because of COVID, all the companies were feeling the pressure, and then the manufacturing productivity was not there because of multiple reasons like the manpower not being available, uh, and then no permission from the government to run the units and all of these things. So one blessing in disguise was like, for example, local manufacturing units were doing good, but then because the logistics and all were down, so some products that you actually get from the north of India, let's say Delhi, Mumbai, Kolkata, so these products stopped coming into Hyderabad, but then the requirement was there. So that gave us solid impetus in terms of the local manufacturing company being able to capture that market and be able to deliver, right? So that is one kind of way how we captured a new market or took a larger share of the market, taking advantage of the situation, right? And similarly, there are few organizations like you have said in the past, right? So there is a capacity in terms of manufacturing unit that they have, and then they were trying to cater to a certain set of audience, or they were delivering through a certain sales channel. But then this pandemic helped them look for various other channels to uh, grow and then be sustainable in the short run at least. So people who were actually catering to uh, so we were working with a fine baking company, right? So initially the whole kitchen was set up to only serve the outlets, and then because of the pandemic situation, they have started a retail channel sales, and then they've started pushing their products across retail chains as well. So that way they could still sustain the minimum production capacity that they would want to.
Right, right. Okay. Yeah. So, how do you define productivity? How do you measure it?
Okay. So productivity is very unique to each organization, right? So if you are making edible oil, the productivity is different. If you are making if you're is a textile unit, then your productivity is different. And even in textile unit also, company that is facing pressure in the manufacturing, for them the productivity metric would be different from a different organization who doesn't have so much of a problem in manufacturing, but is facing the pressure in terms of their sales or being able to market their products, right? So
Right.
the productivity definition can be different for different organizations, and then in the same organization also the productivity definition can be different for different teams, right? So this is where we kind of go into the organization, dive deep to understand like what is the metric or what is the productivity metric that we need to start working on, right? And once you get to the main metric that you want to improve, right, so then you backtrace in terms of like what are the dependencies for this metric, right? So let's say my manufacturing cost is a concern, right? So let's say there is a product A, and then it is being sold in the market at 90 rupees, whereas your manufacturing cost itself is 92 rupees. So how the hell are you going to sell the product in the market, right? So that is when
Right. Hmm.
we work on, okay, now cost is my major productivity parameter, and that is where I need to reduce by, let's say, 5%, 10%, or 15%, right? So then we work back tracing in terms of, okay, so what are all my cost metrics, and then which are all the areas where I can work, and then how much, by how much percentage I can reduce, and then we start working from there, right? Similarly, let's say in the cost metric also, if my variable cost is manageable, but fixed overhead is something which is of a concern, right? So then the answer lies in how do you improve your sales so that you are able to produce more from the same plant, and thereby able to reduce the um fixed cost per product of sales, right? So that is how, like, it's all different for each industry.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. Understandable. Sure.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So, what are the tools, metrics for measuring the process in a company, and how do you set a baseline?
Okay, so these are two separate questions. First, let me answer the first question in terms of process, right? So when we do the due diligence, or we have something called manthan, right? So manthan is a process where we try to identify, dive deep into an organization, understand what are the problems, what are the root causes, and then try to find a solution for these problems, right? And then more or less any problem that you find, so it might be because of a lack of system or process, or because a system or process is existing but not sufficient to solve your problems, or people not being trained enough on a system or process. So it all ends up over there, right? So when we do so how do you go about identifying like where there is a process lapse or gaps in process? So we do multiple interviews, we have different types of studies that we do, we do some audits to understand where the organization has gaps, and then try to identify that these are the processes where things are going for a toss, right? So some of the indicators in terms of which help us identify there are process lapses are like, if you when you do interviews with different personnel across the organization, so one common question that we ask is like, what was the last major problem that you had, and then how frequently do you get that problem, right? So that gives you, that opens some doors for you to understand like which processes there are issues and stuff, right? And then the second part of your question in terms of how do you make baseline, so again this is part of the same root cause analysis or deep dive analysis that we do, and then we take up data for the last 6 months wherever it is there, to form a baseline in terms of like what is the required metric, what is the metric in the past, where are we currently, and then how do we go about improving the same metric.
Okay. And what are the different? So you were mentioning a lot about a lot of frameworks, process frameworks, and different frameworks are used for optimizing productivity, right?
Yeah.
What are some of the frameworks that you generally follow in assessment as well as implementations?
So in terms of assessment, there are few things like time motion study, shadow study, line walks, all of these things which help us understand the client organization in a better way, right? So in a shadow study, we kind of shadow a particular person, let's say a supervisor, a manager, or a worker, or a machine operator, and then study him for a duration of about 8 hours to understand what are all the different activities that he is doing in a given 8-hour shift, and then divide whatever activities he is doing into value adding activities, non value adding activities. That is the first part. And then apart from that, he will divide his activities into managerial activities, activity work oriented activities, supervision activities, and then some breakout time and all of these things, and then understand holistically that what is the role of a particular person. So how much time is he occupied, how much time is he doing value added activity, how much time is he doing non value added activity. The whole improvement begins if you are trying to reduce the non value added activity so that you give him more time to do value added activity, right? So whenever you have a non value added activity, we try to see how it can be automated, semi automated, to ensure that a person does not have to spend more time on the non-valuated activity.
Okay. Okay. Uh, do you recommend any of these frameworks for the current situation, for the surviving and the thriving situation?
Definitely, like each of these things come into picture, like today morning, I was just having a call with someone, and then they were telling, and then it's a very big company, US based MNC. I don't want to name the company, but then even they were thinking, like, boss, my cost head is very high. So how do I reduce my cost head?
Right.
Right? So the basic principles are same. So this is one funny question that comes up in any meeting that we go, right? Whenever we are working, let's say I go to a chocolate manufacturing company, and then the first question he asks is like, have you ever worked in some other chocolate manufacturing company? I say, boss, we have never worked in a chocolate manufacturing company, but then the whole fundamental principles that help us improve, that will help us in improving your productivity, will remain the same. And then the lesser I know, the better, because I will not come with some preset mindset saying that this will be the problem. So when I start looking for problems in a particular direction, I might only find the problems that I'm looking for, but I might miss out on much bigger problems which are there in the organization. So whenever we approach a new client, we approach with a clean slate, just trying to understand what is there, how things are being done, and then what is the scope for improvement, rather than trying to fit a template into an organization and say, boss, some similar organization, they had this problem, this organization will also have a similar problem, let us just attack it and finish it. That
Right.
will never be the approach.
Okay. Okay. The reason why we asked was basically I saw that the productivity, sales, and cost improvements, cost efficiencies were some of the specializations that you had faced.
Yeah, yeah.
So in the current scenario, everyone is looking to optimize or reduce their costs and increase their, the sales aspect of it. Otherwise, at least try to, kind of recover some money or bring in some money.
So the best advice that I can give to anyone is, because of this COVID and then reduction in business, all the owners will have some excess time, and then I would ask all of these entrepreneurs, business owners, to take some time out, see the data in their organization. So there are two problems that we have come across in most of the small and medium scale industries. First thing is there is no data captured. If there is data captured, that data is not organized properly. And the third step is, even if the data is captured and organized, the management does not see it.
Right.
So these three things are core to actually anyone coming out of these problems. Like you might need some help in understanding the data from a third person's view, but most of them are self-explanatory. If you just give some time to it, because it is a business that you have started, you have given life, and then you know the business much better than any other consultant can know. So my advice to any organization is, be ready to experiment, be ready to see your data, be ready to see what the competition is doing, and then take the leap of faith.
Okay. Interesting. Actually, that's a very valid point because I've seen that you're dealing with a lot of companies which are a little bit, I would say, non-tech space as well,
Yes, most of them.
right? So I realize that a lot of people are not towards the technology as well and implementation. Do you see a lot of people implementing the technology right now? Is that
People do want to implement, and then we are working with many government organizations and private organizations also, where the technology implementation is not great, and then for some reason they are not able to find the right tool, or they are not able to get it customized properly. uh, they are not able to spend so much to customize the tool to the extent that they want, and the available tools at their cost range are not fit for their need. So this is a perennial problem that we try to solve for every organization. So Google Sheets and Excel sheets have worked wonders in many of these organizations.
right?
But let's see, someone should come up with some kind of solution for these kind of companies.
Majorly, the two problems that you're mentioning in this segment, non-conventional space, for them to migrate to digital, is basically there are no right kind of tools that are being explored, and second thing is the budget constraints.
Yes, yes.
Wow, okay, that's a very interesting problem. In fact, I see a lot of opportunity over there.
So yeah. So like we have explored in management consulting, you have like the BCGs, KPMGs, and then you have Takshila Consulting, and then you have Minton Consulting. So maybe there should be some software companies also catering to that kind of segment. Maybe
Right,
some products. Yeah.
right, definitely. Okay. So you also mentioned that establishing the sales channel and retail network design is some of your specialties, right?
Yeah.
And currently, with respect, again, coming back to the same situation, with respect to the say retail side of it, retail aspect has been hit very drastically during these times.
Right. Right.
Okay, so when you mentioned retail network design, are there any changes that you're implementing in that sector?
Yes, definitely. So first thing is like as we told you in the earlier segment also, let's say I have a manufacturing capability to manufacture certain product, and then let's say my throughput is 10x, and then currently my existing market is only able to take 5x. Where do I sell the extra 5x, right? So
Right,
for this extra 5x, there are two things that you can do primarily. One is expand geography, one is get deeper into the existing geography, right? For
right,
both of these things, you need to have a distributor channel or a sales channel. Like it can be your own employees working at the grassroots level, it can be outsourced to a distributor. So whichever seems feasible for you based on the product. It is also mostly dictated by the top players in the segment. Let's say if you are in a paint segment, and then Asian Paints is the uh, market leader, right? So sometimes even if you want to set up a distributor channel, it will be very difficult because you are competing with Asian Paints, who has their own sales network, and then their volume is already so high, so that for them it is better to have their own sales network rather than a distributor channel,
right.
right? Then how do you compete in these kind of scenario, right? Similarly, you might have electrical wire segment, wherein the top players like Finolex, Polycab, and all of these people, they have a distributor network, right? So how do you compete when you are competing against them?
Right.
So you might have to fine tune. You might have to decide like what is your price point, who are your actual competitors, what are they doing, and then sometimes we might have to follow them, and sometimes we might have to create our own path. So, and it depends from company to company.
Oh,
Okay, so when you say sales, you already mentioned that word of mouth is one way that you find preferable to reach out to multiple clients. But apart from that, is there anything else that you are doing? Maybe cold calling, email
We've
marketing?
done that. We have done that. So there are multiple channels that we also implement to get our projects. So one is we enroll ourselves with different technical consulting organizations. We enroll ourselves with different trade bodies to get information of different companies which are there in different cities, states, uh, and then try to approach them, do the cold calling, and then try to explain them this is a service that we provide, and then that has also helped us get few clients. And then similarly we also work with some independent consultants who in their previous avatars have been business development managers for many management consulting companies. We work with them to see if there are any possible clients that we can approach as a team. And then we do approach some technical consulting organizations who have a lot of projects in their hand, but then not enough people to deliver. So we
Okay.
take some work from them. So
So
it is,
back end kind of.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So we do that as well.
Okay. Okay. Sure. So, how did you close your first deal? I mean, can you take us through the process as uh, how did you go about that?
It is not as magical or anything. It's not very different. It's like any other call. So basically, we got a reference. We met him. We convinced him of our capabilities, and then he was also convinced of our capabilities. And then we just got started. And then 2 months, 3 months down the lane, he was able to see the results. And then we continued for a good 10 months. And then we have shown them a productivity of close to 20% increase in their production with the same manpower, with the same machinery, with the same raw material,
Wow, that's pretty amazing. Yeah.
and no huge investments in terms of technology or anything as well.
Yes.
So
Yes.
just some small changes at every level, right from coaching the employees, getting them to understand like what is the requirement of the management, how do they see their numbers, how do they start preparing reports, how do they become owners of their small business, right? So that is how we get the change implemented.
That was a very interesting point that you mentioned, making them the owners of their own respective, areas.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so how do you develop that culture? You also mentioned that is a kind of culture change that you bring among the employees, right?
Right.
So apart from the monetary benefits with respect to salary or any other kind of
Mm, mm.
remuneration, what are the other kind of the incentives that you offer to the employees or anyone who's working to keep them motivated enough?
So I'll tell you, the best motivator is make the job easier for an employee, and then he'll love to do it more. Right? So let's say the same thing in terms of when I was telling you about a shadow study, right? So we try to see what is a non-value adding activity and what is a value adding activity. Let's say there is a supervisor in a plant, and then 4 hours out of 8 hours, he spends time just writing some record, which can be done by someone else who is much junior to him, right? So, or you could develop something wherein the data gets captured automatically,
Right.
right? And then if you do this, so if you are saving this good 4 hours time for him, so he will definitely follow the system whatever you want him to. So make the job easier for him, make the job idiot proof, and then make the life easy for all of the people working. So that is a great incentive more than monetary benefit or anything. And sometimes like if you're removing the tussle part of the job, let's say in its previous avatar, so there were many disagreements between the sales, the marketing, the production, and all of these people, right? So that happens when everyone has different goalposts, right? So once you get them to see one common goalpost, and then get them to work together, so the tussle part of it is over, and then everyone tends to start working and supporting each other to achieve their goal.
Right.
So one of the things that we do as our daily routine is conducting a daily war room meeting, right? So when you bombard someone with the same thing time and again, so it gets into them that boss, productivity is something that is my concern. Earlier they would say, sir, this guy has not done it, this guy has not done it. And then someday, 1 month, 2 months down the line, after we start this daily war room, so people will collectively start saying that, sir, yesterday this happened, but we know that this is the problem. From tomorrow, it will not happen. We have fixed this once for all.
Hmm. Very nice. So basically, we are talking about forming and storming. Is that the
Yeah,
one what you spoke about?
yeah.
Forming, storming, and
The bookish way,
the goal alignments, that is having the same vision, and the daily stand-ups.
definitely.
Very nice. Okay. I am personally curious about your stint with the Reliance Jio.
Mhm.
So, with respect to your implementation, what is it that you found? So, obviously, we know that they're extremely wealthy people. But obviously, even if they are extremely wealthy, there needs to be some kind of a framework or any kind of work that is going on to keep for them to be on that be on the path. So what is it that you notice so differently about Reliance Jio that they have done they're at this stage?
So I'll give you a simple example, right? So rolling out of activation process. So even though it might look very simple in the front end, so in the back end it's like a very lengthy process. And then because I have been involved with that process personally, so there are like 21 different teams who work, and then all of them have to work together to ensure that your SIM activation takes place, right? The first project that I've been given in Reliance is to streamline the whole order to activate process and then uh, make it go live, right? So most of the time, like it's not about wealthy or the organization having surplus resources. It's all about ensuring how all the resources are connected and then work together as a team, right? So if you're in a startup, there might be like 3 or 4 teams, but then because it is Reliance, there are 30 different teams who have to work together achieving one common goal. So the major part is in terms of aligning different organizations, different teams, and then communicating to them over a common forum, saying that, boss, the dependency of this department is this way, and this department is this way, and then this is the requirement from one department to the other department, so that everyone works in a sync and then make the actual goal achievable.
Very nice. Okay. All right. So then we're talking about having all the training the team members and also implementing different processes. Also, one more essential thing is attracting good talent. Attracting
Mhm.
talent, good talent, and getting them to work. How do you attract good talent?
Touchwood, luckily, that has been a relatively easy part for us because we've got great people from great companies wanting to join us, even at a cut from their existing salary, because they wanted to do good work, right? And then that is something we could offer. So it was a win-win scenario for both of us. And then we've never had a problem in terms of recruiting the right talent or great talent.
Okay. Okay. So, what is that one advice that you would want to give? So, we do have a lot of apprentices also in this podcast right now. So,
Mhm.
if you have to give any kind of advice for the beginners, what would it be at this point of time?
Understand the bigger picture. So in terms of interns, so
So,
organization is very big, right?
right.
And then you might be a cog in the wheel, but that doesn't limit you in your understanding of the organization. So try to understand the larger aspect of the organization. Try to understand who is the end customer of the organization, how he is using your product or a service, and then that is when you will understand like what is the role that you are playing. So just because you are doing a small part doesn't necessarily mean that you only need to view the small part. So you can always step back, see the larger picture, understand what you are delivering, and then that is what will give you the impetus in terms of wanting to grow, wanting to uh, like basically get inspired is what I'm telling. So
Right.
when you see examples, you get inspired, and then when you get inspired and try to do something in that direction, wonders do happen.
So, you yourself are an entrepreneur who started something. So, given the current times, the pandemic, would you advise anyone to, take up what you did? Is this a good time to start up something like this, or would you advise them to wait? I mean, what is your advice in general regarding this?
So definitely, necessity is the mother of invention, and you cannot have a bigger necessity than having to thrive in this pandemic time. So this is the right moment for anyone to start, be it a career, be it an organization who wants to mend the ways it has been doing business, wanting to do something new, wanting to do something different. This is the time. There can be no better time than this. That is how I would see.
Right. Right. So this is a very, I mean, if anyone is starting also, most probably, so today we see a lot of startups which are there, or rather companies, small businesses which are there within 15 people, 10 people and 15 people.
Yeah, yeah.
And people are just starting off now.
Hmm.
We see a lot of frameworks which are applied for the mid-scale and the large-scale companies. For the
Hmm. Hmm.
small-scale companies, what are the different frameworks that they can follow? and for aggressive growth as well.
So when coming to the smaller organizations, definitely there are many things they need to get right and be ready to be scalable, right?
Right.
So there are so many things that the small companies ignore at the start of the company, which kind of become a stumbling block for them to grow at a later date, right? So that is where we are actually helping a few of the startups in terms of getting their systems and processes right at the start, so that going forward it doesn't become a stumbling block for them to grow further, right? So there are many things in terms of role clarity, organization's vision, uh, getting the team right in terms of the different teams roles and responsibilities, in terms of the growth path, right? So explaining everyone like what this company wants to be, and then being able to align them with the goals of the organization, so that everyone works for the same goal.
Okay.
So for startups, I think this is very important.
Right, right. That way, especially given today's world, a lot of people have scaled down to about
Mhm.
5 people, 10 people organization, at least the majority of people whom we are
Mhm.
seeing. And people who are starting up as well, as you mentioned, it's the right time to start up if you're doing anything right now, because you're getting people who are willing to work for you, and
Mhm.
as well as they're working for the remote area, so there's a lot of time available.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay, we do have a few audience. We'll just check if anyone has any doubts or any questions that they would want to post to you.
Sure, just ask simple questions.
Hey guys, any questions here? Sailesh, Suman, anyone?
Yeah, Giridhar.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi, go ahead.
Hey,
Yeah.
Sally.
Hello, Mr. Srinivas. Thank you so much. That was really insightful from what we've learned and what we've completed till now. So I had a question running in my mind,
Mhm.
right? When you were segmenting the management consulting firms based
Mhm.
on their levels, right? Like in the beginning, we spoke about KPMG,
Mhm.
um, you know, KPMG, McKinsey, and then came the Takshashila, and then came Minton,
Mhm.
right? So you told us that it is majorly a price difference part, like where you are catering to a certain category where the payments, or whether they are comfortable with a certain consulting companies where they are able to pay that fees,
Yeah.
right? So I understand that would be like how it would work is like, if you uh, charge high fees, then you can work with less clients, and if you are having less fees, then you would need more clients. So how do you balance your onboarding at once, so that the delivery as well as the operations are running all together in tandem?
So again, this is like a typical scenario where I gave you an example, right? So let's say
Mm-hmm.
uh, there is a product that is being sold in the market at 90, and then if you are not able to sell it at 90, then you have no business being in the business, right? So you have to better figure out a way to deliver your product or service below 90, so that you are profitable, right? So whatever we teach to other organization in terms of cost management, that is also something that we need to do, right? So
Okay.
let's say I know of different hospitals that are there today. They know that there is a particular hospital which is offering a particular operation or a service at, let's say, 1 lakh rupees, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
at 1 lakh rupees there are a certain number of people who are willing to take that service, right? So now if there is a different hospital which wants to be in business, so they need to figure out a way to offer that same thing at a much lower price point, let's say 90,000, 80,000, and then there are new customers who come up to take that space, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that is how it is.
Yeah, so when we are operating at that price where we are reducing the operation cost, so it means you would need more customers coming in, so that you take care of your day-to-day operations well.
No, see, that said, like price point lower necessarily doesn't mean that you are not profitable, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you definitely ensure that you are profitable in each of the projects that you do. So that question is not something that comes to us. Like if it's not profitable, if why do you do the project in the first place?
Okay.
All right. Suman, you want to go? Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Srini. Good
Hi,
evening.
good evening.
My question to you, Giridhar mentioned multiple types of projects, be it productivity,
Mhm.
be it GTM activities, multiple types of projects. And at the same time, he did multiple types of businesses, telecom, insurance, he touched upon. So how do you manage multiple types of projects, multiple types of businesses all at one go? How do you bring it all together?
So, okay. So, generally what happens is like, it's again the bandwidth and then the scope of work that you can manage, right? So we have about three partners in our organization, and then we run about 7 to 8 projects simultaneously. And then for each of the project, you have a full-time consultant who is working specifically for that project end to end. And then you have a project manager or a partner who is working part-time basis to ensure that whatever we have promised to the client in terms of the deliverable, is that being met, is some course correction required. So ideally a project manager can seamlessly manage about 3 to 4 projects, uh, and then as you want to grow the number of projects, you also have to grow in terms of people who can project manage these things. So over a period of last 2.5 years, like many of our consultants have now grown to become project managers, and then thereby giving us more capacity in terms of taking in more projects.
Okay, thank you.
Srinivas, have you also worked with the government sector as well? This is a personal
Yeah, we
question.
are currently working, so this is our first government project, and yes, we are working for it.
Okay, all right. So the government side is a lot more different from the way you approach a private company, right? Or private sector.
Definitely, definitely.
So if at all you have to say two things that you have to follow, two strategies that you could follow in the government space,
Mm-hmm.
what would they be? What would they be?
Okay.
Generally, in terms of approach,
Can I get your question again in terms of like what strategy? Strategies to get a project or deliver a project?
one in terms of approach, second
Mhm.
one in terms of implementation.
Okay. First thing is in terms of approach, basically your network, right? So you have to build a great network, and then a network that has reach into different government offices, so that whenever they have a problem, you need to find a way of listening to their problem.
Hmm.
And once you develop that, only then you can hope to get some projects from there, right? That's the first question. And
Right.
second question in terms of implementation. So uh, government, because the way it is government, and then they have very many limitations in terms of what they can do, what they can't do, and then how many levels of approval they need to get to implement a small thing, make a small change.
Right.
Let's say if you are talking about a company, so you convince the management that, boss, you need a data entry operator, you need 2 data entry operators, please get it for me. So it's the management's call, and then they'll say, but okay, hire 2 data entry operators,
Right.
right? But then the thing in government is different. So in government, you'll have to first say, do a study saying that this is what is happening. uh, there is a gap of 2 data entry operators that is leading to this kind of effect, and then you kind of have to give a proposal, and then that proposal has to go through multiple vetting process, and then finally by the time these two people, data entry operators, get onboarded, it will be about 1 year to 2 years. So those are some of the challenges in a government organization.
All right. So I have one last question from my end. This was actually one of the testimonial which Oris had given
Mm-hmm,
with respect to their process implementation and how you reduce that cost and increase the sales.
okay.
So can you just enlighten us or tell us how how was the implementation of that and how you identify the problem and how you kind of arrived at the solution?
Okay. Frankly speaking, like OHRIS is a project that was done by my other partner, Mr. Ashish. Right?
Okay.
So he will be able to add a great value. But then I can give you a brief insight into in terms of like what are the changes that we worked at, right?
Right.
So first thing is like how do you improve profitability, and when you come to profitability, you need to reduce your cost. When you have to reduce your cost, then raw material cost is one thing, manpower cost is one thing, and then infrastructure cost is one thing,
Right.
right? So now we worked on all these three elements. Okay. In terms of raw materials, like what are the current procurement processes that are being followed? How can we streamline it further to ensure that we get better advantage in terms of pricing? So we can have the advantage in terms of reducing our inventory. Let's say we were carrying an inventory of 30 days, but then as per the operations, if your lead time is only 2 days to get a product after you order, then why do you have to maintain 30 days?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that way you can reduce your inventory carrying cost, and then you develop a better supplier network so that you get a reduction in the cost, right? And then you can also work in terms of your manpower, right? So how are you using your manpower? How can you reduce the non-value added activity in the manpower?
Right.
All of these things. So that is the area where we worked on in terms of reducing our cost. And then coming to improvement in revenue, so we did a study to understand like why people come to Ohris, and then what are the reasons why they keep coming again and again, and then if they have lost few customers, what are the reasons why they have lost their customers, and then how can we work upon those issues to ensure that people come back again and again. So one of the things that we did was take up ratings in Zomato and Swiggy as a target, and then find ways and means to improve the customer satisfaction, uh, give incentives to the staff of the restaurant based on the feedback and reviews that customers give about their service, right? And then work on organic and inorganic ways to improve the restaurant ratings, thereby improving the sales.
Okay. Okay.
So we have also identified their B2B business or the catering business. Also, we have given it a new look and new touch and feel in terms of engaging all the employees in the organization, giving them an incentive structure to help them improve the catering business. And then people started getting converts from their relatives, friends, and all, so that the catering business also improved for Ovaries.
Very nice. So you concentrated on the procurement aspect of it, because again you have a lot of perishables over there,
Yes, yes.
and you worked on. That's a very interesting way to solve it. You took all the online reviews and then you built a strategy on that.
Yeah, yeah. So how do you incentivize people so that they are incentivized to serve better and then give a better customer experience to your
Right.
customers?
And you looked into the new division of having the catering to be taken care of. Ori is actually one of my favorite restaurants in Hyderabad. All right.
Great.
So that's it from my end. It was actually very insightful session. I just want to check up with the audience if anyone else has any questions. I'm just going to
Giridhar, I have one question. Himesh here.
go ahead.
Hi, Srinivas. Like the session so far, very informative. Thanks a ton. So for someone like me who's already like not yet an entrepreneur or just interested in being a freelance consultant, like how would one start with? Would it be only through referrals, or like how could someone get in touch with this group where actually people are having issues where we could actually provide a value add through our experience, like,
Okay.
or maybe probably through a collaboration with a group like yours, or like how would that work? Like probably how you started might be a good place to answer that probably.
My way of starting is just jumping into it and then navigating your way, right? So that's a
Okay.
different thing. So but now these days I think there are about 3 to 4 different portals that are there in terms of freelance consulting. So there are portals where people come and then put in their requirements saying that this is the work that I want, and then I'm looking for a consultant. So you can apply for these kind of projects as a freelancer and then try to get them. That is one thing. And then enrolling with few organizations as a third party consultant, so that whenever they have a requirement that fits your need, so they can hire you, or you can collaborate with an organization like ours wherein if we think that we will have a requirement for this person throughout the tenure of our organization, then we try to hire them. And then if we are coming across some project at some place which is a small duration project, then we might look to outsource it to a freelance consultant. So multiple options are available. It's up to you in terms of how you want to get started. But then the first way to get started is like tell all your friends, people whom you know, that this is what you want to do, this is what you want to provide as a service. Like as I told you, word of mouth is the best way to get things started.
Right. Just
Then
one
you
more.
have to ask for it. You have to ask for it. There is no other way.
But it's a word of mouth and asking for it. Thanks, Atan. Just one more on top of it. So initially, when you were saying the first phase where the problem statement is defined in 2 to 3 weeks period, and then the solutioning starts and all.
Mhm.
So once the solution is provided, and then probably it's up to the management whether to go with it or not. So say suppose in a scenario like you were mentioning the government project. So once the implementation thing starts, so the whole metrics around the solution provided to measure the success of it, is there generally a template or a framework to understand that? Is that actually provided by someone or understood before coming into the agreement of the solutioning?
No, see, first, if you are not coming up with a solution that is implementable, and then you have given a solution wherein someone has to think again if the solution has to be implemented or not, then you have not arrived at a solution, right? So you always have to arrive at a solution in tandem with the client organization, and then only once they buy the solution, it becomes a solution, or else it becomes a theory. Right. And then once there is a solution, and once it is agreed upon, so implementation has to happen. So you do the implementation, or the client organization does the implementation on its own. So I think the process is going to remain pretty much same.
Got it.
There might be few hit and trials, and then few changes in the process or the solution, but then the direction would be set.
Got it.
I hope I answered your question. Like, there was a second part of to your question.
It's around the metrics part, because I'm not sure. I mean, in few scenarios where the retainer is higher, and then there's a smaller payment that is based upon the metrics of the success. So in such scenarios, like, how is that metrics defined, and like how would we arrive on such thing?
See, it again depends on the baselining, right? So you see what is the data in the past. You see like what is the desired state, and then you'll have to see like what is the scope of improvement, and then peg to some metric in terms of your productivity improvement, your cost reduction, and let's say even companies like KPMG also do the same thing. Let's say you benefit out of the project, and then if a client organization, let's say, benefits because of the project to the tune of 5 crores, then a 10% of the benefit is passed on to the consulting organization, right? So depending on how you agree upon, like 10%, 5%, 20%, it all depends from case to case.
So our SMB sector is equipped enough to understand and realize such profit margins and then take it up forward.
Yeah, definitely. We've been seeing that change. Like the torch bearers for all these SME sectors are changing. Like it's no more the older generation who are running these organizations. So they have level who are coming and taking up the organizations, and then they are definitely open to changes. And then not that older people are not interested in changing. Like we have worked with different organizations where even the first generation of entrepreneurs, they are also pretty much is interested in seeing their organization grow, develop, become more system and process oriented, because that is what will help ensure the sustainability of the organization, right?
Right. Just taking capability, and also I think agreeing upon the change shown on paper and probably monetary benefits around it, I guess.
Right. So to ensure that everyone is on the same page, so we kind of conduct a fortnightly meeting with the key members of the project, the owners, the CEOs or the MDs, and keep showing them the improvement. And then this improvement is not something that you show as a consultant. So you develop the team so that these improvements are actually shown by the team to their own management, and then you are there just to help them, give them the guidance, but then it will be their team who is presenting to the management in terms of what improvement has happened, right?
Got it.
So disagreements in terms of improvement, whether happened not happened, it's all very clear. It's not like you're doing the whole thing and then at the end of 1 year you say that this we have done this, and then they say that no, you have not done this. It doesn't happen like that. It is a very involved process. These projects are very close to the heart of most of the owners, MDs, CEOs, and then
Right.
someone who is only very involved will take up this kind of activity, and then someone who actually wants growth, implementation in terms of systems and processes, they only take up these kind of projects.
Got it, Srinivas. Thanks a lot. I think that answers. I'm done with my questions, Giridhar. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Umesh.
All right, guys. I think we are good for the day. Srinivas, thanks a lot for making time and coming and answering all the questions over here and giving us some key insights and also some way forward for a lot of us.
Hey, thanks, Giridhar, and thanks for the opportunity.
So,
Great.
I hope
Thanks.
you have enjoyed it. Thanks a lot, guys, for being over here.